Welcome to the Betting Above the Rim podcast. Today's date, May 9th, episode 51. In today's podcast, we get into three topics. Number one, we will preview game number 3 to be played Friday night. First, with the Knicks taking on Indiana, with the Knicks with a 2-0 series lead. And then we'll also preview game number 3 between Denver and Minnesota, with Minnesota completely stealing home court advantage, winning both games in Denver and up 2-0. Next, we'll get into an interesting topic with the Rookie of the Year award, MVP awards. I want to get into who do I think is the next face of the NBA with LeBron, Steph, and KD, all their teams knocked out in the first round. And then lastly, I'll get into my thoughts as a coach with the 2-minute report, especially after everything that's gone on, especially with Rick Carlisle's comments last night and what we've seen with other series, basically always involving the New York Knicks. And speaking of the Knicks, let's get started. Game number 3 is going to take place Friday night with the Knicks heading to Indiana. Right now, Indiana is a 6.5-point favorite. The total is moved, folks, to 225.5. Why is it significant? 217.5 was game number 1. 219, game number 2, up to 225.5 in game number 3. And when you first talk about New York, you got to think about what is the status of 2 of their starters. We obviously know that Randall's out. We know that Mitchell Robinson's out. We know that Bogdanovich is out. But they got some bad news late in the third quarter. OG Anunoby, who I think, folks, was having his best game by far as a New York Knick, pulls a hamstring late in the third quarter, chasing an outlet pass, looking to get a layup. He was out for the rest of the game. Folks, this is a hamstring. This is tricky. I would be stunned with the Knicks up 2-0 that they're going to play OG Anunoby, which brings me to the other injury with the Knicks, and that's one of Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson, who gutted it out last night, Jason, who really took over the game again in the second half, 24 of his 29 in the second half. Remember, folks, he hurt his right foot in 3 minutes left to go in the first quarter, missed the rest of the quarter and all of the half. People talk about Willis Reed performance. Different, folks. When Willis Reed did this in 1970, he scored 4 points. It was also Game 7 of the NBA Finals. So let's pump our brakes about the Willis Reed effect, and I'm a Knick fan, but Jalen Brunson was absolutely dynamite in the second half and really has taken over this game, particularly in the fourth quarter when he sees Ryan Nembhard guarding him. So let's go to Indiana here because let's be honest, folks, they have to get this game. To me, they got to get both. They got to get games 3 and games 4, but you can't win both if you don't win game 3. So what do we think we need out of Indiana? Number one, we need Tyrese Haliburton to be Tyrese Haliburton, folks, and listen to this carefully, folks, for all 48 minutes. Tyrese Haliburton was absolutely fantastic. I am not knocking what this kid did in game number 1 compared to game number 2 compared to game number 1. My problem is I still think Tyrese gets into a habit of being a little bit too passive, not wanting to take over the game too much. Let me tell you something, folks. Tyrese Haliburton should have had 40 last night. He should have had 40. And I think that is kind of my issue with Tyrese is because sometimes, I'm not saying he takes plays off. I just feel like he doesn't want to step on through it. Tyrese Haliburton had shot 4 of 7 from the floor and had 12 points in the second half. Well, he had 22 in the first. And I'm telling you, he should have had 40. Now, what else do they need to get better? Miles Turner has to be better overall. Miles Turner, who played really, really well in game number 1. Game number 2 did not play as well. 3 of 11 from the floor, 6.7 rebounds, 0 of 2 from 3. This is a guy that's a stretch 5, should be dominating. And that's my problem sometimes with Miles, even though I like this 3-point prop, is sometimes he goes too much to the 3-point line. 3, Pascal Siakam cannot shoot 7 of 18 from the floor, especially if OG Anunoby's out. If OG Anunoby is the best defender on the perimeter, that means he's guarding OG, and OG's guarding Pascal. Let's put it this way. If OG doesn't play, I know they're teammates in Toronto. Precious Achiuwa cannot hold Pascal Siakam to less than 22 points. So what am I saying? I need Halliburton to step up for 48 minutes. I need Miles Turner to play better than he did in game 2. I need Pascal Siakam to look at Precious Achiuwa and go and dominate him. And then I'm going to get to you, Rick Carlisle, because you sit here and you talk about the 78 missed calls in games 1 and game 2. I want to say this to you. You are the reason why your team lost that game. You are the reason why they lost. Why are you the reason why they lost? Very simple, folks. TJ McConnell has been your best player at times in this series. I would say the best player overall over the 2 games. He gives Brunson fits. But with 7 minutes left to go in the game and up 2, you pull him and you put in Ryan Nembhard. Let me tell you something, folks. When Brunson sees, I keep saying Ryan's a little brother. Andrew, I should say Nembhard. When he sees Andrew Nembhard, it's a turn barbecue chicken. So to me, here's what you do. I'm going to go on the sidelines and I'm going to help out Indiana. Very simple. TJ McCollum is the point. Tyrese Halliburton gets moved to the 2 in the 4th quarter. You could then put Aaron Nesmith as the 3, and then you go Siakam Turner. That's it. End of story. Game over. I don't need to see Andrew Nembhard. I don't care how he thinks he is. He gets bullied by Brunson. Here's the last thing. I would run a second defender at Jalen Brunson if he plays. I'm going to make someone else beat me. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to load up on DiVincenzo. I'm going to make Josh Hart make threes. I'm going to make Precious Achiuwa make plays. That's how you're going to beat New York. Lastly, they got to run. So that over 225.5, I still think the game goes over. 7 out of the last 8 games has gone 230 plus. Lastly, if I want to run, that means another person that's played pretty well in this series is Obi Toppin. Obi Toppin's got to get more looks because you got to run with pace. It's very simple, folks. Tibbs can only go 7 deep. He put Alec Burks in for like a hot second. It's the starting 5, and it's Deuce. And if it's no OG, it's Jericho Sims? Make this a track meet. Look at Indiana to win game number 3, make it 2-1. I like the over 225.5. Let's move on to game number 2 in the Western Conference with Denver at Minnesota. And Lord, have mercy. What do we have here? We got what I call a Jamal Murray problem. Jamal Murray, who has been so great in the history in the postseason, has been god awful except for 1 half. Game number 2, absolutely terrible. What do you want to talk about? 3 of 18? We can talk about that. He had 13 rebounds, but he can't go 3 of 18, right? Because at the end of the day, I'll say this much. Nikola Jokic, he wasn't much better. He was 5 of 13. So when your 2 star players go for a combined 8 for 31 from the floor, you're not going to win games. Why are they struggling? Because Minnesota is the best defensive team in the league. Excuse me, New York, I am talking to you. They are better defensively than you because they have a premier ball stopper in a point guard position in Mike Conley, the seasoned veteran who has done it forever. You have Anthony Edwards, who I will talk about in a second about being one of the faces of the NBA. And Edwards is an absolute problem defensively now that he has decided to buy in and lock in. Rudy Gobert is the defensive player of the year. Cat can play defense because now he's at a 4 and as a 5. Jaden McDaniels could be the premier perimeter defender in the league. Oh, Naz Reid, come off the bench, he can play. Nickeil Alexander-Walker, oh wait, he can defend, right? Monte Morris, oh wait, he can defend. Slobo Anderson, oh wait, he can defend. So everybody that Coach Fitz puts on the floor can lock you down. Lock you down. So this team that's playing great defense, how do you unlock this team in Denver? Number 1, you can't get frustrated and you have to get off the better starts, right? And you're going to have to get something from your bench. And I'm looking at Reggie Jackson, I'm looking at Christian Brown, and I'm looking at Peyton Watson. They have to give them something. Folks, they miss Bruce Brown. They miss Jeff Green. Maybe not so much all the way because of the scoring, but their toughness, their leadership, and their defense. They got to be better, and they got to turn around and find a way to get this done. Do I think they get this done? I think they get one of these games. I don't know if it's 3 or 4. I think they get game 3. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Denver on the money line that you get their best stuff, because I think Mike Malone's going to pull out all the stops. They get game 3. Minnesota gets game 4. Denver gets game 5. Minnesota wins it at 6 at home. I think it's a 6-game series, and I firmly expect Minnesota to end up on top. Speaking of Minnesota, speaking of Denver, let's move on to a fun topic, folks, and that is, who do I think is the future face of the NBA? You may say it now. LeBron, knocked out in the first round. KD, knocked out in the first round. Steph, didn't get past the play-in. So now you're looking at 3 of the premier stars of the last 15 years of this sport not involved in the playoffs in the second round. So it got to an interesting topic to me is, who is the face of the NBA? I'm going to give you a couple of people that I think we should discuss, and then I'm going to give you my winner. Number 1, Ant Edwards. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. What this guy has done in the postseason has been absolutely sensational. You could argue he's been the best player in the postseason. Look what he did game 1, staring his idol Kevin Durant in the face, and he slayed him 4-0. You could look at what he did in game number 1 against the defending champs, slayed the Joker and Jamal Murray at their own gym. So what does he do? He follows up game 1 with a game 2, shooting 11 of 17 from the floor for 27 and 7. Ant Edwards is a problem. And he is one of the faces of the NBA. And it's amazing to watch him play, especially the way I think it is. It's the maturity of Ant. Let's move on to the reigning MVP, Nikola Jokic. You always have to think the Joker is one of the premier players. I mean, he could be the best player in the world, right? 3 MVPs in 4 years. Dad bod, getting it done. Can do everything. Scoring the pinch, scoring the low post, score at the top of the key, lead the break, dime you up, rebound the ball. Secretly good defender, doesn't get enough credit. So you got to look at Nikola Jokic, right, as a face of the NBA. We can look at Giannis. I know they got knocked out, but you still have to consider Giannis, because I still think Giannis is one of the best players in the world. Can you talk about Joel Embiid? Yes, you can talk about Joel Embiid, but my concern with Embiid is he tends to get hurt. And unfortunately, he gets hurt a lot of the wrong time. What about Luka Doncic? Luka Doncic that every year we think about is going to be the MVP and has done an amazing job with Dallas. Now, he has struggled, Luka, shooting 5 of 35 from 3 the last 4 games. Now, I think you get a better Luka performance tonight. Obviously, by the time this comes out, this game 2 would have been played, and I think you get a better performance out of Luka. I don't know if they win against OKC, right? So then let's move on. What about SGA? What about the job SGA has done? And taking a team from 24 wins to 40 wins, right, to the number 1 seed in the Western Conference, SGA, who does it all. It's unbelievable what SGA has done for the Oklahoma City Thunder, putting that team on its back and elevating it. What about JB? What about Jalen Brunson? Why Jalen Brunson? Kind of like when Steph Curry became one of the faces, because he makes small cool. He's not fast. He's not overly quick. He can't jump so high. But damn it, look at what this guy's doing in the postseason. Getting you 35.6 points per game, shooting it at 46%, 8 assists per game, 81% from the free throw line, 4.5 rebounds. And doing it, folks, in New York, a city that hasn't won a championship in over 50 years. And he does it game after game after game. And it's his leadership, it's his moxie, it's his toughness, his ability to take charges, his ability to play through injuries. He's the common guy. He's the little guy. He's the guy that everyone roots for, even if you're not a Knicks fan, unless you're an Indiana fan. Honestly, and unless you're a Philly fan who you're still complaining about him getting all the calls, which you need to stop with all the calls that Joel Embiid gets. He's the guy like Steph was, because of his size. People root for the kid because he does it the right way. But of all those guys, the face of the NBA is Victor Wembanyama. Why? Folks, we have never seen this before. He's 7'4", folks. And I think he should have won Defensive Player of the Year as a rookie. He leads the league in blocks. He's only played about 27 or so minutes a game this past year. If we could pull up Victor Wembanyama's stats for this past year for the San Antonio Spurs. He was absolutely magnificent, and particularly his play down the backstretch of the season was superb. So when you start looking at the face of the NBA, it's Victor Wembanyama, folks. 21.4 points per game, 30th in the NBA. 10.6 rebounds per game, 8th in the NBA. 66th in assists at 4 assists per game. Shot the ball from 3 at 33%. He shot the ball 80% from the foul line. He led the league in blocks. He was 1.2 steals. He shoots 47% from the floor. I mean, what can't this kid do? And he did it in 29.7 minutes. So when Pops lets him loose next year, and he's getting you 37, 38 minutes. And if they get a better point guard, I do like Jones, but if they get a better point guard to play with Wemby, I'm telling you this right now, folks, mark it right now, I'm telling you, 25, 13, 5 blocks, 5 assists. Game over. Drive home safely at the age of 20 years old. Who's going to be able to do that in the league and do it for 16, 17 years? Folks, I think he's 3 years younger than Ant. He's like 5 or 6 years younger than Brunson. Like, are you kidding me with this? Victor Wembanyama is the future face of the NBA. But I will say this, American basketball, Ant, Brunson, maybe Tatum, and there's a kid at Duke named Cooper Flagg you may want to start looking into, who should be the top pick in the 2025 NBA draft. Let's end today's podcast talking about the 2-minute report. Folks, I'm going to come out and say it. The 2-minute report is the biggest joke in the NBA right now. You know why, folks? Because they did it because they want to have transparency. They want to show that these refs are human. But here's the problem with the 2-minute report, folks. Do you actually think that they just make mistakes in the last 2 minutes? No, folks. I mean, let me tell you something. I'm a coach. The next time I see a good referee will be the first one. And don't get it twisted. I got friends that are referees, and I love them. I'm not going to mention their names. I got friends that coach in the NBA. I mean, the ref in the NBA, WNBA, D1 men's, D1 women's, and some of the top officials in the world. They have an impossible job because the game's too fast. And I think the 2-minute report does more harm than good, because everybody looked at Game 1 and Game 2 between the Knicks and the Sixers. 2-minute report. Oh, they missed this call. Oh, they missed that call. Then you look at the 2-minute report of Game number 1 of the Knicks and the Pacers. Oh, they missed this call. Oh, the kick ball. Folks, stop it. I would say this, and it's the only thing I'm going to say right about Rick Carlisle. He said they counted 78 calls that they missed. I'm going to tell you something. He's probably right. He's probably right. So here's what I'm saying to the NBA. If you want to do 2-minute reports, I ain't with it. Here's what I'll tell you. No 2-minute report at all. At all for the season. I want 24 hours after the game like they do now. I want a 48-minute report. I want a report for the entire game. Every missed call, the entire game, whether it's a charge or a block or a deflection that was wrong, or a foul that should have been called that wasn't called, or vice versa. Give me a 48-minute report. And people that will understand that there's so many mistakes that the referees make over the course of the game that referees, ready folks, don't decide the outcome. The only time they decide the outcome if it's a buzzer beater. So when I look at you, Rick Carlisle, and you're blaming the officials for the 78 missed calls over 2 games. No, Rick Carlisle, I'm looking at you that TJ McConnell was not in the lineup late in the game. I blame you to the fact that you've given up over 250 points to a New York Knicks team that's missing its second best scorer. It now may be missing its third best scorer, and the one that's missing, oh, by the way, the best offensive rebounder in the NBA and one of the best shooters in the NBA. So you can go there. Philadelphia, you want to talk about missed calls? How about the fact that you don't turn the ball over and make mistakes? How about you advance the ball, Nick Nurse, to the other side at half court so you don't have to worry about a steal, and if it's a steal happens in a missed call, it's not under your basket that you're defending that you give up an open three. So that's my point, folks. Stop blaming the officials for something that we know is a problem. Officials are a problem anywhere. I'll take you. Come with me one day. Come to a high school game and watch me rip officials from the stands because I can't coach anymore because I can't deal with the parents. Watch me in a college game. Watch me go after officials. You can pull tape with me at Monmouth. Every media timeout, I'm out at half court as associate coach, barking at officials for calls that are missed. And those are the calls they missed for me. I'm not talking about what they missed for the opponent. So that is something I want to get off my chest. Stop with the 2-minute report, NBA. Either give me no report or give me a 48 full-minute report with all the mistakes that referees have made. I'm done with that topic. Thank you for listening to today's podcast. For everything sports gambling, go download that SportsGrid app. Pre-game, in-game, post-game, props, predictions, and more from the very best in the sports gambling industry. Next podcast will be filmed on Monday to be released on Tuesday. Two things I definitely want to get into. Caitlin Clark would have played 2 games in her preseason career. What are my thoughts on Caitlin Clark? And then we will look into, after transfer portal madness, who are my top 5 teams in college basketball going into next season. For my producer, Matty George, Vinny always crushing it with the graphics. This is Coach Young. Thank you so much for listening, folks. Remember, it's smarter to be on SportsGrid. Good night.